Hey everybody, this is Benjamin Morse, comic book artist, coming to you high atop Bear Mountain in the Hudson Valley. And since I had a little bit of time today, I thought it would be cool to go through some cool things about starting a comic, in particular your logo design. I haven't seen a lot of stuff out there about this. Sometimes I think it maybe is treated as an afterthought, but I think it's actually a pretty great place to start. As it so happens, I'm developing a new comic, which is a sequel to We Are Scarlet Twilight, which you guys may have seen. Working on issue 3 now. It should be done soon, and we'll start up the campaign for number 4. But after that, I've got a few projects in the works. One called Helios Pact, which is a science fiction story. One, it's a sequel to Scarlet Twilight, which I'm going to call Cobalt Crisis. And one that's a sequel to August Purgatory Underground, which is out in stores now from Red 5 Comics. So please bug your retailer, ask them to order that from Red 5 Comics. And hopefully you'll see a lot more of it. But one of these projects, Cobalt Crisis, needs a logo and kind of some direction. I've got most of the story written, and in between coloring, it's kind of fun to take a little bit of time and do some other things, just so you're not too bored. So let's get started. The idea behind Cobalt Crisis is that it's a sequel to Scarlet Twilight, but it's also kind of a Crisis on Infinite Earths or a Secret Wars type event, a big crossover thing, lots of heroes, lots of villains, other dimensions, all that stuff. I really wasn't going to do a sequel to Scarlet Twilight, but once I had a few ideas for some villains and had the idea to do kind of a very modern crossover concept with the old school 30 and 40s stylistic stuff, the way they do panels, storytelling elements. I thought, yeah, that's enough. That would be a good story. So first thing I'm going to do is decide what I want this logo to say. And the two main things are I want it to look like a big Crisis crossover type thing, and I also want it to look retro. So that pretty much tells a lot of the story right there, which is what you want your logo to do, in addition to looking cool. So I took a look at this, which I think we've all seen, the Crisis on Infinite Earths logo, and Secret Wars. So we see kind of what they're doing there. Some of it's dimensional, some of it's skewed, bold fonts, bright colors, and that's a good starting point. The other thing I want to do is look at some old comics and see, having gotten my directional thing, the Secret Wars and Crisis, I want to look at some of the elements in old comics, a lot of these that we've seen, that will sell the retro part of this story. And that's kind of what you want to do with any logo. Some examples of ones I've done in the past. This is from August. This was never one I was going to use in the main book, this space agent thing. But the whole conceit of the story was, hey, this is like an 80s cartoon that you're going back to and telling a little bit more of a modern take on it. So this is the version I use on stuff that's meant to look like an old 80s throwback of some kind. So this is like a mock-up, toy box that you might see on an 80s toy, but for Captain August here. And when I brought that out into the comic, it looked like this. I guess it needs to be in this kind of window. So it's kind of the same shape, but it's real severe. Kind of tells you that the story is going to be a little less, I'm going to say it not kid friendly, but it's not as childish, not as naive, and it's a little bit of a different story. So I think that logo kind of did that. Let me bring up We Are Scarlet Twilight, which probably a lot of you have seen. This was the logo for that, and I was kind of doing an inverted thing there, because I knew my covers were going to look very old school in one way or another. So I wanted my logo to be very modern and say, hey, yeah, it's retro, but it's not just a pastiche sort of thing. It's going to have some new stuff as well, or at least a new take on the old thing. So in all those cases, this is kind of what we're doing with the logo. We're saying, hey, you're going to get some of this, you're going to get some of that, and it's kind of, I think, cool to put that up front when you're developing your project rather than making an afterthought. So to get in the actual logo design, you can go into Illustrator here, and I threw together a bunch of fonts I thought would look pretty cool and would work out for Cobalt Crisis. Mostly 30s inspired, and I just kind of go through and take the ones I think will work best. I did an earlier version of this video. If I go through the whole process, it's very long, pretty boring. So what I ended up doing was taking the ones I thought worked kind of making a final cut where I said I took 4 fonts I liked, kind of played with them, um, varied the font size, different words, changed the letter forms. Got to this point, then kind of went ahead and made a mock-up cover. So this is that first logo concept, but on sort of a retro cover. So I got some of these color bars here. I've got these little bugs that show Captain Lancet, that show the old logo, because again, I want to make it clear to people that might have seen Scarlet Twilight that this isn't a new thing. It's going to be a continuation of the story. And I've kind of left some space where I can put some blurbs about what's going to go on. There's a price thing, date, which is not going to be that date, but that kind of shows like where you can take that from. You've got the big, bold crisis letters. Certainly that's going to bring to mind some of those old crossover stories. This is a very 30s way of going about that type with the skewed letters kind of bunched together. It's almost cartoony and does kind of evoke, hopefully, some of the stuff we see here in these old, going hard in that Bible, in these old comics. So that's kind of what I'm going for there, and hopefully did it. Also, kind of played around with a few different options on some other ideas. So like I said, might be an alternate option where we just skew some of these. Let's see how that looks too. This is also, I think, because we're doing less with the typeface, we probably need to pick some of the more 30s skewing fonts, which I think this is. That looks pretty good up there. So the whole thing, layer behind, version of it behind it, bring out this. So we've got more of a shape there. And I think that works out pretty well too. Let's go ahead and grab some of these cover elements just for fun. Kind of a more effective mock-up. And I think this works out pretty well also for that one. So that's kind of a walkthrough of the process. You start with a font sheet, write out your title and just do it completely bare bones. Pick out the fonts, take this, get 4 or 5 you like, make some more interesting letter forms out of them. In most cases, you don't want to just use the letters as is, although sometimes that works. And take that and work up something like this or like this. And that kind of walks you through the process. At least I hope that's like a good, sort of not quite a step-by-step path, but a way to say, hey, what am I trying to do with this? What are things that do it? What are things that readers, especially comic readers, understand those elements to be, portrayed as? Look at that. Take your influences, take that to your lettering program, start working it up. So, hope it's been helpful. If you have any logos you're working on, throw some links to them in the comments. It'd be cool to have everyone take a look at it. Keep drawing, guys.